I will be sharing the slide that I have, or actually the presentation that I have with all of you. It will be short, but it will be concise, and it will be information that hopefully you will find and consider and enjoy. We will be talking a little bit as a wrap up for the election, what happened and where the state is headed and what have you. We will also be talking about the CPI components. Why is it so important? Because the rent component and or owner's equivalent of rent component of CPI is the largest part of it. We will be talking about the housing plan that just last night the city of Glendale accepted the revisions from the Housing Community Development of State of California, and it's going to be sent back to the state. We will also be talking about homelessness and how housing abundance is the solution to actually eliminate homelessness. As you know, right now, ULA was approved in the city of Los Angeles, and everybody is going to keep Mayor Karen Bass's feet to the fire, because now they claim that she has all the tools that she needs to eliminate or drastically reduce homelessness in Los Angeles. Why is it important to Glendale? While Glendale homeless numbers have been decreasing, Los Angeles has been increasing, and there are a neighboring city. So whether you like it or not, we have porous borders, and we do affect each other greatly. We'll also be talking about the ADU financing. A while back, we talked about it, the sources that were available, and totally unrelated, however, passed under the radar is SB or Senate Bill 1157 Hertzberg that may have some ramifications. So as far as the elections are concerned, folks, according to San Francisco Chronicle, the most, of course, this should not be surprising to you, the most progressive city in California is San Francisco. But if you look at Los Angeles falls out the seventh or eighth city that is most progressive. They also had an interesting chart that shows basically the redder the county or the city, the more conservative, and the greener, the more progressive. And you can see that LA is, a little bit less than full green. And that was an interesting analysis that they did. And that analysis was based on all the propositions, the 7 propositions that we had on the ballot. What's important for you to know is, according to BizFed, your association, GAOR, is a member, a PAC member, as well as board of directors member, represented by me on BizFed. 37 assembly members and senators were elected. 18 of them, according to BizFed, are moderates. And that's important. 9 are progressives and 9 are Republicans. BizFed was very happy with our involvement with the elections and their, so to say, the results that was generated because of their advocacy and involvement in different district elections in Los Angeles County. Let's talk about CPI a little bit. You know, as well as everybody else, that CPI, in the CPI, U.S. housing market, the activities that take place in the U.S. housing market is 25% of the gross domestic product nationally. California is about 21%. So the work that you do is of utmost importance as realtors, because the contribution, the economic contributions in effect, and we've shown you lots of charts before on how this works out and what an important work it is that you're all doing. If you look at the CPI, you will see that 42% of this CPI component is comprised of owner's rent and or rent or owner's equivalent of rent. That's almost half the CPI. This is exactly why this is the low-hanging fruit for Fed to come out and change the Fed funds rate in order to control inflation and what have you. Compare that to, for example, the green pie portion, transportation. That's about 18% of it. Or compare it to food and beverage, which is about 14.3% of it. So you have, as realtors, an outsized influence on what happens in the CPI and the CPI component. Pardon me. Why am I talking about this? We are going to be touching on the housing plan in the city of Glendale. If you remember, Glendale Association of Realtors was very active in providing suggested revisions to the housing plan, specifically in the downtown area, downtown specific plan, because the city had close to about 1,700 or so units that they thought could result in additional housing units. We went out and we told them that's an impossibility because of the leases, the long-term leases that exist on those properties and so forth. And they were good enough to go out and make those revisions. As a result of your involvement with the Glendale Housing Plan, by the way, we're amongst one or two associations in the entire state of California that has done a deep dive into their city's housing plan. As a result of your involvement, that was changed, and they had to go out and find out additional properties in order to qualify for what is known as most likely properties that in the next housing cycle would serve as residential development and so forth. And we're very, very proud of it. But as of today, as of last night, Glendale is out of compliance, so is Pasadena. The only city in Tri-City is Burbank that is in compliance. Now, there was a little bit of a fear amongst the council members as well as the city folks that live in the city of Glendale or Pasadena, that because of being out of compliance, something in the California law is called the builder's remedy will kick in, meaning that a builder can now submit plans, say, for a building of, if a piece of property qualified for 10 units, this builder could very easily go out and say, because you're out of compliance, we'll put in 20 units. So long as, of course, they'll meet the parking requirements and the CEQA requirements. So that was the fear. However, the explanation that was given by the city council and the city attorney was the following, that because City of Glendale did not have to change any zoning or did not have to add any zoning classifications, the builder's remedy would not apply to the City of Glendale. As of last night, the City of Glendale accepted the revisions that EDGE CD, the Housing Community Development of the State of California, had suggested, and they will be sending back to the State of California, and hopefully pretty soon we will be in compliance. But I will tell you, you had an outsized influence on this thing because of Glendale Association of Realtors with our housing plan. As you know, RENA numbers say that City of Glendale is obligated not to build, but to provide zoning that would create or will provide the opportunity for a developer, a private developer, to come out and build up to 13,000 units within the next cycle, which is about 6 to 8 years from today. I want to talk about a little bit about the ADU. You know, about a couple of 2 or 3 months ago, or actually it was closer to the beginning of the year, I came out and said, look, CalFHA has got a program. Go inform your clients. Do use this program that has got an exceptional financing for building ADUs. That program was about $100 million. They ran out of it. I mean, the whole fund, the whole program now is closed. But the good part of it is that it provided opportunities for 2,500 homeowners to add an ADU that can be financed with exceptional rates and terms with CalFHA. And this is a good thing because it would add to the housing inventory in California. If this program changes or if additional funds become available, I'll make sure that I'll provide the information as soon as I can. And I provided to you, I want to say about 5-6 months ago. I hope that some of you have been able to use it. Let's talk about housing abundance as a condition to end homelessness. Why is this so important? As I said, ULA, or United House LA, was just passed by about 10 points differential by the voters of City of Los Angeles, because they were so fed up with the issue of homelessness in the city of Los Angeles. Now, there are those of you that you remember Proposition H passed, Proposition HHH passed, and not much came out of it, or not as much as folks thought it will address the homelessness issue. This does not mean, by the way, that there are no solutions or models that have been successful, that have used what is known nationally recognized as the way to go, which is called housing first, right? In other words, let's house the unhoused first and then attend to them, to the segment that has, need help with mental or drug abuse, or mental illnesses and drug abuse and so forth. So without getting too much in depth, because this is a 25-page report from YIMBY, or Yes in My Backyard, and I'll be able to provide that report to any one of you that want to read and get into the weeds about it. But let's start giving you some graphs that shows what has happened in the past 10 years with continuum of care cities. By the way, City of Glendale is continuum of care, with the point in time counts, and which city has done well, which city hasn't done well. In San Francisco, you can see that in the last 10 years, actually, even though there was a continuum of care, HHH, and so forth, the homelessness number has gone up. By the way, because the count of homelessness is point in time, it doesn't reflect in its totality what the number of homeless people are. So San Francisco went up in the last 10 years. Los Angeles, it should not be a surprise to you all. You see it, you drive the streets and you know it, went up in the last 10 years. By contrast, look at what happened in Houston. They all three use the housing first recognized plan nationally, right? But in Houston, they were able to reduce homelessness or cut the homelessness by half. So this study suggests that there are solutions to it. Why do I bring this up? Because again, ULA is going to be providing funding for the city of Los Angeles to the extent of $600 to $900 million a year. And folks have been very adamant and very clear, poll after poll, at least 2 polls that I know after the elections, that Karen Bass has got the tools right now, and we want to see results, right, in the next 2 years, not in the next 10, in the next 2 years. So I thought I'll share this with you because there is light at the end of the tunnel. Let's see if our cities will start using the Houston model, and we'll be able to either reduce homelessness dramatically and or eliminate it altogether. Something that passed under the radar was SB 1157. What does it say? It says that starting 2025, 47 gallons per capita per day is the allotted amount of water usage for internal water usage of a residential home or a residence. 47 gallons, it used to be 57. And what does this mean? When you ask GWP, they will tell you, well, it just gives us a tool to measure by the number 47 or 42 after 2030, how much water we provide each residence. There is no way of separating the internal the water that you use inside your house and the water that you use for irrigation, for your landscaping, and so forth. Because all residential homes have what? 1 meter, not 2. My concern is the following, and this is not to scare anybody. This is just hypothecation at this time, is the fact that the law has passed and we don't want to see legislators come out and say, now we have a law, but where are the tools to moderate it? Do we need to have 2 meters at a residential home? Are we going to be, water is an issue in the state of California right now. Are we going to be able to control what folks use inside their homes? According to GWP, that's not the intent, but this law is there. I just wanted to share that with you. So at least in the back of your mind, you'll be aware of it. With that, I thank you, President Toro, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Greg. Greg keeps me on the...
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, for Greg, regarding the ADU, there are some homeowners that are kind of worried to go into it because, some of them have additional, not what do you call it, not licensed or not permitted. So are they kind of not really generous or loose on having an ADU and they will not charge for any violation at all? So you're looking at, let's say, a house and then they have a garage or something, but they have additions unpermitted in their main house. So they have a space for an ADU, but then they're concerned that, when this building thing or whoever is managing it will look into it and they will say, oh, this is not permitted. So before you can construct your ADU, you should have permit, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yes. And so the question is, would they be making some exceptions because you're creating an ADU, whether or not you have an unpermitted structure that has been turned into an ADU or a granny flat? How would the city react to that, and how difficult will they be in permitting it?
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, every municipality will have its own ordinances and so forth. But generally speaking, even if you have an unpermitted ADU, the best practice is to go and permit it. And I believe that because of the housing situation, this is my personal opinion, because of the housing situation in the state of California, because of the dearth of housing or the shortage of housing in the state of California, some provisions will be made in order to help the homeowner comply and bring the unpermitted unit, for example, into compliance with, let's just choose as an example, with the city of Glendale. But it needs to be applied for, and it needs to be cleared, and it needs to be, you need to pay the permit fees for it. Now, having said that, when you go to the market, if your client wants to go to the market, if you have an unpermitted unit versus a permitted unit, I think it would make a difference in pricing that property. So I encourage everything to be permitted, and I encourage, at least for your clients, to seek some help from, people that are experts in there, but find out, do some research. What does it take, for example, to take an unpermitted unit in the back in the city of Pasadena and turn it into a permitted unit? At a point in time, for example, city of Pasadena had a program with that, and it was expedited, and it was quite speedy. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that is an ideal situation, but on the premise that the place to do your ADU is open, and the unpermitted is in the section of the main house.
Well, that's going to be handled by each city
Yeah.
separately, and they have the right to do whatever they want at that point. So it's important that you check with the cities if you want to go, if that's important. Greg, we have 2 more questions, and then we're going to move on. Ira and then Carmen.
Thank you. Greg, regarding the presentation on the city council and the housing element and things, when the attorney made their statement, it was about compliance. Was that an opinion or a statement of fact?
Well, I don't know how many attorneys you know, but I know a lot of them. It is very, very difficult. It has always been very, very difficult for me to separate an attorney's statement of fact versus an opinion, because it usually has got all kinds of conditions attached to it. But the city of Glendale is on record that while they were out of compliance, the builder's remedy would not apply to the city because they did not change any zoning.
Okay, that's good. And one other thing not related to your presentation, my understanding was the city of LA last Friday was supposed to vote on whether or not to finalize the rent moratorium lifting, but they punted. Is that correct? And so if that's the case, what's the reality of the situation?
Well,
It stays the same?
So right now, for example, the CAA and AGLA have got a lawsuit against City of Los Angeles injunction for the continuation of the moratorium and so forth. We will know more, I think, with the next city council meeting. But that's the extent of which I know. I follow AGLA's lead and CAA's lead on these issues, Ira. But whether or not the moratorium is going to extend, yeah, but there are lawsuits and there are injunctions and so forth.
Okay, thanks.
Carmen, I guess your hand is up.
Yes, quick question regarding Houston's downturn in the homeless population. How factual is that data, or does it take into account those who have migrated out of Houston?
Well, this is about homelessness, and the way that they, once a year, it's called the PIT, or the point in time count. People go out, volunteers, and they count the homeless people. And Houston's model, by the way, Houston's model has been chronicled in New York Times, in many, many magazines and so forth. And so, yeah, it is factual. They have actually cut their homelessness by half. And so this is why I say there is hope and light at the end of the tunnel. And they need to, whoever is going to be in charge, right now our biggest component of homelessness is in the city of Los Angeles, 40 or 50,000. Imagine reducing that by about 25 or 30,000 in the next 5 to 10 years. That's the idea. Yeah, and so yes, it is factual. It has worked out.
Thank you.